Michelle, why don't you lay this out for us? Now that we've added the complication of these tariff threats against Mexico and not for economic reasons, what does that mean?
Well, what struck me late last week, was that the German 10-year yield went to a new all-time low. I mean, we're not in the middle of the economic crisis in Europe, right?
And we broke through it
again today.
Morning.
I guess if I'm in Germany, I'm looking at what just happened thinking, wow, if he can turn on Mexico, we are not out of the woods when it comes to tariffs on German cars. That could come back. And Germany is so reliant. They've got the issues with Brexit. They got the issues with China in terms of their auto. So that is like this little kind of emblem of how badly it could go for Europe.
Do you think that's why boons have come under even more pressure this morning and on Friday of last week because of the Mexico situation, or is it just
I think Mexico certainly added to that. There's also the issue with the European banks that they just never fixed.
What about the Salvini issue and what happened?
Oh, yeah, Italy's. Oh, yeah, there's all those other problems. But on top of it, then you see what he's doing in Mexico, and you think, Germany could. Absolutely. He's not done with them.
No, definitely. So, he likes this tool. It's one that he pulls out of his tool chest.
He likes this tool so much. I watched his news conference, I think it was 2 weeks ago, where he said, everybody says that the economy was strong despite the tariffs. I think the economy is doing well because of the tariffs. He believes it helps the U.S. economy.
And by the way, went against all of his advisors, including Lighthizer, on bringing these potential tariffs against Mexico. We'll see what happens. You still have a week before these tariffs get put on.
And the Mexicans are working very, very hard to please the president, because the one thing is Mexico doesn't like Central American immigration as much as the United States does not like Central American immigration, right? They are very, very frustrated with the problem as well, and the Mexicans themselves have actually turned, when you look at the polling, negative on what's been the huge number of people coming north.
So, Barry, what does that mean from the market's perspective? How do you size this up?
So I think the problems with Germany are far deeper than just the tariff issues. If you think about trade more broadly, global trade growth was 2 to 2.5 times GDP in the last business cycle, right? After China, entered the WTO, you had this 14% growth in global trade through that business cycle. This business cycle, it's growing at the rate of GDP. So I would view that as globalization no longer expanding. You've got a number of countries that have created entire economic models, Germany being probably first and foremost, so dependent upon exports. But Germany's in the same spot they were in the middle 2000s, where they had to restructure their labor markets to become competitive. They now have to restructure their economy. Merkel could lose. What they should then do is they should cut the VAT tax, they should cut individual income taxes, try and spur domestic demand, start eliminating the imbalances within Europe. But until Germany's willing to...
There's never going to be enough domestic demand there to be able to...
There could certainly be enough to shrink a 7 or 8% current account surplus. Remember, China's current account surplus was 10 and went down to 2. So, and this whole concept permeates out through central bank activity and the performance of the bunds. The real issue here is that Germany's now the weak child of Europe, and they need to restructure away from exports. It's going to take political moves to get there.
And remember, when the German 10-year goes down, it brings ours down, too, because if you're getting nothing there, the U.S. 10-year looks good, right?
It's like a windfall to be coming here at 2.1%.
Yeah. So our view on the markets all coming into this had been, once we got through earnings season, which outperformed by quite a bit, almost 6% beat, that the world's attention was going to turn to this. Ultimately, there would be a deal, but that the correction would really hit the export-dependent economies hard.
Very quickly, let me just say that we're looking at video of the president arriving at Buckingham Palace. That's why we've been watching this through the day, and we'll continue to monitor that. But I guess it's fitting time to be talking about Europe as the president's arriving there, too. What do you tell people to do today, Barry?
I think that... With respect to U.S. equities and equities broadly, it's going to take, obviously, a few more weeks we're going to need to get closer to G20 before you start eliminating all the uncertainty. But the underlying trends are fine for the U.S.
That's the best case scenario, by the way.
Correct. I think the U.S. will be fine. I would certainly be cutting exposure internationally. I've been suggesting that all along. I wouldn't chase the bond market here. We've got this convexity-related rally going on, and I'm sure we'll talk about the Fed a little bit some more. I've moved into the camp where they will be cutting this year, but not 3 times in the next 3 quarters. So I would gingerly step back into some of the cyclical sectors, today and through the course of the next couple of weeks and add some exposure.
I'm still at 60-40.
60-40?
60 stocks, 40
bonds? Are you serious?
Yep. Been there for a long time. It's better than cash. I was in cash for a long time.
I'm at 100% equities.
I know. We've had this conversation before. But I look at what happened with the long end of the curve. I'm like,
Yep.
everything's just fine.
Fine for now. Fine.
Parking money in diamonds. So what?
Got to get a little bit of exposure to Bitcoin, I feel like. 1% of the net worth.
1%? No way. I'd rather own gold than Bitcoin.
Me too.
Probably add some. You probably add some.
And I don't want to own gold.
Yeah, right? Little high yields.
High yields
And I don't want to
right
own
now.
gold either.
Is Bojo?
Lottery tickets.
Bojo.
Boris Johnson, you're talking about?
Is it going to happen?
I don't know. Whoever's the number one at the early stage of the process often is not the person at the end of it.
Farage it would be.
Could Farage do it?
Oh, that would be unbelievable.
Oh my God, it'd be so fun to watch.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, from a journalism perspective,
Sure.
Farage would be the
And from
best.
across the-
Boris Johnson would be second.
Yeah.
What you need is somebody to say to the folks in Brussels, "We're going. This is it."
Right.
You really walk away from them, and then that's when you're going to get your best deal.
Since you left, I mean, things have gotten even crazier in the world. But as it moves towards sort of some of the stuff you wrote about in your book, I mean,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
like this guy, Knapp. You read his stuff?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
No,
he's a
see,
true
I know
believer.
Ironsides
Yeah.
on a lot of things.
Yeah. Okay.
So by the way, on that front, all the immigration issues that we've been talking about so much in Central America, an important event happened over the weekend. There's a new president in El Salvador. I interviewed him a few weeks ago. He actually believes in the free markets. He believes that the
What?
private sector,
El Salvador?
Yeah, El Salvador. It was run by a former leftist guerrilla since 2014,
Right.
a Marxist, and now there's been a dramatic change there. It's 180 degrees different from what was there before. So let's see if that starts to improve at least one of those economies down there that have been so
What
plagued.
does need to happen? I mean, if this is out of our control and out of Mexico's control,
Well, those economies have to get better, right? And they have all the classic issues that we talk about, right? A terrible business climate, barriers to entry, all kinds of stuff that low-hanging fruit that if they just did it could and they've got
not to mention
terrible
crime and
corruption.
corruption.
Yeah,
That's
corruption, rule of law, all the
Right.
the basics. But this guy at least says, I'm embarrassed that people leave El Salvador. I want people to stay in El Salvador. We have to do things so that they want to stay here.